Thanks for coming. I am Jeanne Gang. I'm an architect and a Chicagoan, and today I'm going to talk about expanding our ideas about what infrastructure is. I actually am the daughter of a civil engineer, and our family vacations were spent driving across the United States in a station wagon, looking at every single road we could possibly find. I think the real purpose of these trips was to go see bridges, and I think we saw every single one, the longest, the flattest, the tallest. But this trips as a kid gave me a real appreciation for, in addition to civil engineering, a love for landscape as well, in the American landscape. And so my real passion is design and figuring out a way to blend the cities and landscapes. One of the problems with our current definition of infrastructure is it really just talks about power, roads, and bridges. And those are not the only things that are needed for a society. As you can see from this view of Chicago from the remote suburbs, when we rely alone on roads and bridges, we don't have complete communities. And so that's why I want to talk about expanding our ideas of infrastructure today to include things like vertical infrastructure. The pattern of urbanization really matters, so that you can see in this equation on the left-hand side, the tall building houses 7 times the amount of people and can reduce the carbon footprint by a factor of 7 as well. So it's actually important to learn how to build tall, but also make it compelling. We also need to think about community infrastructure. That widespread pattern of urbanization also wreaked havoc on the family, and today we know we have much more diverse types of families and living situations, and we need to build strong architecture that becomes the hubs of communities and consider that infrastructure as well. And also, we need to think about green infrastructure. This is a map showing how urbanization is spreading across the United States, and you can see how urban centers are bleeding into each other. So what that does is it disconnects places and green places for animals and biodiversity to expand, cutting off crucial green connections. And I'm going to talk more about green infrastructure too in different ways. A lot of people talk about cities and the fact that we're, over 50% of the population lives in cities, but the impact of that, we're also expanding as a human population, over 7 billion people today. But the other side effect of that is that we are increasingly becoming a solely human population, and our biodiversity is dramatically reducing. So that, in fact, about 20% of all living populations could become extinct by 2030. And this is really crucial for our future and a key to the future. So let's talk a little bit about what green infrastructure is. And it's needed because we want to maintain this strong biodiversity in our communities. This is a view of the Lincoln Park Zoo circa 1908. And we used to think about nature in the city as just something to look at. Here, it's just a pond, a picturesque view of water in the city. What we did was we were asked to re-envision this pond and create it almost into a new habitat for animals, a place for people, and stormwater infrastructure. So it's really doing the work of what we use sewer pipes for. We're doing it in a natural habitat here. What we did was we made the pond much deeper and ripped out the edges of the pond and used the plants around the edges of the pond to filter the water, the rainwater, instead of using public drinking water to fill the pond. And then we created a boardwalk around it so people could enjoy it. So what this has become is really a vibrant ecosystem right within the dense city of downtown. It's almost like a zoo without cages, where animals volunteer to show themselves off. We used wood, one of my favorite materials, because it's sustainable, to make this really beautiful pavilion using bent wood, prefabricated pieces. And you can see it here at night. It is really smack in the middle of the city. And what's happening is it's become this rookery. There's over 400 pair of the black-crowned night heron now roosting there. And also another popular species in the city that's reviving itself is the coyote. About 2,000 individual coyotes are known to be living in Chicago. So this provides a crucial place for them. They keep the rat population down. They don't eat pets. But they're actually a very good animal to have in the city. Another project we worked on is the Northerly Island Framework Plan. This is a view of the former Meigs Field, so it was an airport right on the water in the city that you all know. It was, let's just say, rendered obsolete in 2006. We came in and we designed a new kind of airport. Okay, it's going to be an airport that supports birds, migratory birds coming into Chicago. It's going to be a public space, an exciting landscape that will support all kinds of habitat and try to overlap that with human uses. We're ripping out the edge again, and creating this new reef, and the reef will allow us to create much more diverse kinds of water habitat for fish spawning and to support animals and wildlife. And you can see it's really a matter of design. It's a very careful design, how you create the section and how you support these animals. We're going to have a sunken ship for diving. And really it's about thinking about this crucial piece of infrastructure as being green. Connect these green networks. Vertical infrastructure is my second one. This is important because we need to, like I said before, make compact urban cities. And how, as an architect, I'm concerned with how to do this in a compelling way. How can you convince people to live in the city? In New York, we worked on a project. There's a zoning ordinance of 1916 in New York, which essentially created the step-back skyscraper. So that was an idea to bring light and air down to the street to make the city more livable. Ironically, with this project that we're designing along the High Line in New York, we found that we actually had to turn that zoning ordinance on its head in order to do the same thing. And I'll tell you why. We found out that if we built as of right on this site with the step-back zoning, we would actually be shading the High Line. The High Line is an interior block park, elevated park, and so it's different than providing light and air to the street. It's actually on the inside of the block. So what we did was we found a way to carve the building away to provide light to the High Line. And in doing so, we were able to provide 200 hours more daylight to this urban public space. And the shape of the building then looks like this. It's actually carved specifically for its site. The carved areas have a faceted type of glass and make it really beautiful. The Aqua Tower, which is another tall building and vertical infrastructure in Chicago, and it's right over there, is a project that we designed with the idea of the building being an actual topography. So the exterior of the building changes in shape and provides outdoor terraces on its exterior. Every floor plate is slightly different, and that is what creates this baffle for wind, but also makes it possible for people to see each other on the facade. So they're changing so you can actually see other balconies. And these cantilevers extend up to 12 feet in some areas and really make a space for living right on the outside of the building. It's also a perch for peregrine falcons. This was a picture that the builder sent me during construction. So you see that intersection of urban wildlife and the building again. But people are able to, it's become this very social building, and I think that's partly because of the terraces. You can see other people. People are getting to know each other. Yeah. I heard that, they're getting together. It's better than meeting in the elevator, I'll tell you that much. And so it's a building that really creates community in the vertical dimension, I think, and it's one that makes, again, living in the city more compelling. Community infrastructure. We need community infrastructure so we can build stronger cities and not forget about all the parts of the city, from the lakefront all the way into the neighborhoods, and think about architecture and art as the key to starting to be the hub for community infrastructure. These are two maps of Chicago, and the project I'm talking about now is called SOS Community Center, and it's a place for foster parents. They train foster parents and create foster family housing, and try to get siblings who have been put into different families into the same foster care family. And when we started looking at this project, we mapped the city and looked at all the notable architecture in the city. So you can see on the right-hand side, those black tick marks are notable architecture according to the AIA. And we discovered that there were huge areas of the city that had no notable architecture. In fact, they were what we called architecture deserts. And so my practice, we've been trying to, at the same time we're doing tall buildings, we try to do community buildings and try to populate the desert. On the left-hand side, you can see the city mapped by race. And so this becomes, and there's a correlation between economic situation, race, and architecture, notable architecture. So we're trying to bridge that gap. So this is the building. It's located on 74th and Parnell on the south side of Chicago. And we had to design this because of very low budget with lots of donated and in-kind materials. So this is just a view of all the materials we had to accommodate. Really not in total control of the materials. So we used donated concrete. At one point we had brick, and then the brick was taken away, and we decided to expose the concrete and use different mixes of concrete to accentuate the donation and make it visible, and also to accentuate the quality of the concrete, the fluidity of it. And you can see the stripes of the concrete there in construction. And this building has really become a hub for its neighborhood, and it's a building that has improved its neighborhood, not in a gentrification way, but in the terms of like people caring for their outdoor spaces. It serves all kinds of activities, and is really helping to create that quality community in its place. And I think community can also be something that's more international. You can think about an international community abstractly and how it comes together in a building. For the Kalamazoo College, we're designing this Arcus Center for Social Justice Leadership. And when we started this project, we thought, you know, what is an architecture of social justice? What could that be? And how do we place this on a campus that is defined by neo-colonial architecture of all things? Soundly inappropriate, I guess, in terms of thinking about social justice. But we decided to instead relate to, this is just a view that's an inspiration for me, like, you know, how thinking about social justice as architecture, thinking about the fact that everyone's life is equally valued, and how can that come to embody that in your architecture. So we decided to relate to this grove of trees instead of the neo-colonial architecture on the campus. This is the site. And use a material that is sustainable. Wood, again, we're using wood that's harvested from this area, the white cedar, from the actual region where the building is going to be built. We found this incredible type of barn that still exists, 100-year-old barns made with this wood used as masonry instead of as, you know, vertical members. And it was a lost art. And so we've been working to revive this. We found a few people that knew how to do it. This is our studio doing a workshop and learning how to build using wood. The great thing about it is it gives you a much more thermal value to the wall, and it's a sustainable material that actually embodies carbon instead of, like with brick, for example, when you burn brick, you're putting carbon into the atmosphere. So I love that about it. And you can see how I think that the connection between the individuals that will use this social justice center and the individuality of each tree somehow has a synergy that is really exciting. Then we're taking it to new levels, how to do different things with it, warping the walls, exposing it. And creating a building that has transparency on its ends to connect to the university, the grove, and the neighborhood nearby. Creating these 3 different kinds of landscapes in these gently arced surfaces. So the inside becomes really a crossroads for interaction and trying to run into people that you might not normally see, learning about where they come from, and creating a powerful social justice message. This is what it will look like, and it's under construction. So to close, I want to talk about, again, why we need to expand our notion of infrastructure. I think, green infrastructure is something that is going to be a crucial component for our future in cities, and it's necessary. It's as necessary as bridges and roads and power. So think about infrastructure as green infrastructure. Vertical infrastructure, I think we should fear no height in our communities. A lot of times people try to maintain a low density in their neighborhoods, but it's really important to plan for and think about increasing densities and making communities stronger, using less transportation and having populations live where the transportation is and where the jobs are. And finally, community infrastructure, recognizing that there is a need to build communities in our cities at every far reach of the city and not just downtown, and think about ways that art and architecture can help in that support socially just communities. Thank you very much.